Hello, let me welcome Thomas Gelmi. Thomas Gelmi is a specialist for personal and interpersonal competence. Now I'd like to let Thomas quickly introduce himself.
Thank you very much, Andreas, for inviting me and for having me for the interview. It's my pleasure to be here. Yes, 2-3 words about myself. I am 53 years old, and for the past almost 20 years, I have been supporting leaders, executives in corporations across the world, across cultures, in their development. This means individual one-on-one coaching, team coaching, but also more comprehensive development programs. That's what I do. Before I embarked on this part of my career, I used to work for Swissair, the former Swiss national airline, for about 8 years. And I was leading cabin crew at that time, globally on the international network. And I learned a lot about people, about what works in human-to-human interaction, about leadership as well, in that time period that I still benefit from in my work today.
I guess what people don't realize is that cabin crews, we perceive cabin crews as they are responsible essentially to provide us good service. And I think what people don't realize are two things. First of all, cabin crews are first and foremost there for the safety of the passengers. That's number one. And the second thing is that the crews, you're not always working with the same team. So you don't have the luxury that you have in many companies that you say, yes, we're like a football team. Let's not talk about football maybe after yesterday. But you have a chance to be a good team, and a cabin crew needs to assemble as a team and still provide good service to passengers who I guess are not always easy. So I think it's a good school for leadership and customer service and etc.
Indeed, the challenge is really what you just mentioned, is this double role, service role and safety role. And what passengers mostly perceive is the service role, because that's, in the best case, the role that you spend most time in. And the other one is of course a role that you need to be taken very seriously, because it's the main reason for why cabin crew are on board an airplane in the first place. And juggling these two hats, these two roles, requires first and foremost high role awareness, which is also something that is crucial in other leading positions, managerial positions, to be aware of your role and what the requirements of the role are. And the other thing you said is really that crews are mingled together each flight. And that's a luxury, you said. Well, sometimes it's also an advantage. You don't have to be with the same person. You don't have to work always with the same. So. It has two sides.
So it's interesting, because in the conversation we had before, maybe also to know why I know Thomas, is because my brother was in a training that Thomas led. And I talked to this with my brother, and he said, yes, Thomas, since I work with Thomas, I can't say but anymore in a phrase, because he forbid us to say but, because he says everything that comes before but you can forget. So he says, I still have to remember Thomas there. So when we talked before, you said that interpersonal skills are essential skills. I can imagine that is as a crew, but why would you say that?
Well, actually, I go even one step further and say that soft skills, what is usually referred to as soft skills, and they are often the interpersonal skills, they are essential skills. Why is that? Because when it comes to leading people, it's about people. It's regardless of whether you're in the B2B business or in the B2C business, it's H to H, always. It's human to human.
Human to human, exactly.
Yes, exactly. And so an organization doesn't make itself and keep itself profitable. It's the human beings that do it, unless you have a purely artificial intelligence driven online business where no human workforce is involved. But generally, it's the people. The people who will make the difference, especially in markets and environments where products and services become more and more comparable. So it's basically the same thing that you get from one provider and from the other provider. So it's the people that make the difference.
Yes.
Plus, most organizations and leaders find themselves navigating a VUCA environment with increased volatility, complexity, uncertainty, etc., where you as a leader cannot have all the answers anymore, and you cannot control anything anymore. So you depend on people acting from their own initiative, taking responsibility for the job, showing engagement, ownership, etc., and not just playing by the rule book, doing the necessary, but going extra miles if needed. And this is absolutely dependent on the quality of relationships.
The relationship between the leader and the employee.
Yes. Yes.
And how do you find two leaders from your experience? Do people have this experience over in general, or?
Well, you know, in general, when you talk about this with managers, with leaders, they understand what you're talking about.
They understand it, yes.
Yeah, they understand it rationally. If we look into the organization, what we see very often is that there's a very strong focus on facts and figures and KPIs and numbers, et cetera, et cetera. So it's very numbers driven.
Yes.
Which isn't wrong. However, and I just recently got a client that gave me this key insight from the development program. He said his most important insight was that you can make a company more profitable and improve the financial numbers by focusing on improving your leadership and the soft skills, the essential skills, and the collaboration and the relationships and the culture. This will end up in you being more profitable as an organization, but without focusing on the numbers all the time.
Okay. So where would you start?
Self-awareness, always.
Self-awareness. What do you mean by that?
Helping a manager or a leader become more aware of his or her behavior and the impact it has on others. You see, most managers act in the best of intentions,
obviously.
100% certain that they are doing the right thing, which is also often, visible in their success. So if I'm successful as a manager, of course, I'm convinced that I'm successful because of how I do things and what I do. Because
maybe sometimes you also promote it, sometimes, which is quite often. I mean, the best engineer is promoted to team leader, the best accountant is promoted to I don't know what, and the best. So how would you become more self-aware?
Well, the best way of becoming more self-aware is, on the one hand side, self-reflection. So observing yourself.
Yes.
And asking others for feedback. Because many managers are not just successful because of their behaviors, but also to some extent, despite some of their behaviors. And very often these behaviors are blind spots. So I don't even know that some of my behaviors are turning people off or are demotivating people, unless somebody will tell me. So that's why getting feedback, for example, in a 360-degree feedback process, creates a basis for more self-awareness. And then I can, work on those behaviors, eliminate maybe some of them in order to become even more effective as a leader.
You mentioned 360-degree. What about plain old listening?
Oh, of course. Well, they go together, right? They go hand in hand.
But I think that isn't it so that people think that they listen and in fact they don't? That listening skill is something that is not so popular.
I would say, listening is probably one of the most underestimated aspects of great communication and leadership, because especially in highly competitive environments, sometimes, and quite often actually, people don't really listen to understand, but rather listen to answer.
Exactly.
Listen to be right, and end of the day, listen to win, to get out of this conversation as a winner.
Yeah.
And that's not the quality of listening that really improves relationships. That's just pretending to listen while I'm waiting until you're finally done talking, so I can finally then make my point.
I notice sometimes with myself when I'm listening, or sort of listening, I'm already formulating the answer.
Yeah, in your head, in your mind.
In your head, I'm using the first 20 seconds to see what is this all about. Yeah. And then if a person talks 2 minutes, the rest of the time I use to formulate my answer, and I wait for the moment where I can actually bring it.
Yes.
And say, look, Thomas, I hear you, but
exactly. Exactly.
But then you need to understand. I get you, but you need to understand that this and this and this.
Exactly.
So that's a non-conversation, no?
That's a non-conversation,
but it isn't.
And it doesn't help. It doesn't improve the relationship. That's the point.
That's interesting, because this we talked about engagement and the importance of engagement. And my insight from the research I did is what you also mentioned, that the quality of the relationship between the leader and the team member is critical to engagement. And if that doesn't work, then
absolutely,
then you may not you may even not make your numbers from what you said, or you may have more difficulties to make your numbers.
Or you just do the bare minimum.
You do the bare minimum.
Bare minimum.
Exactly. So when we talked about our conversation here, you mentioned that the quote by Richard Branson, where he said, customers don't come first. And I was a bit shocked that you mentioned that, because all what we do is essentially about customer service, ultimately.
Yeah, of course. And it's not Branson's quote doesn't say the customer is not important. Of course, the customer is at the heart, or should be at the heart, of everything we do, all our activities, of course. Otherwise, we don't need to have an organization, a company, right? So yes, it's all about the customer, and customer satisfaction and customer loyalty are key. But how to get there is the question, right? And I don't necessarily get there by only and exclusively focusing on customer satisfaction and not caring for the rest. For example, employee engagement and employee satisfaction. So what Branson says is, customers don't come first, your employees come first. Because if you take good care of your people, they will naturally and automatically take care of your customers. And this has a lot to do with the quality of leadership, right? So the strongest driver for customer satisfaction is employee satisfaction. Because if I'm not happy as an employee, if I don't feel respected, if I don't feel like I'm seen and appreciated for the contribution I give, because I'm trying to do a good job, right? Where is my focus of attention absorbed? Inside the organization with everything that I'm not happy with. The moment I'm happy, I'm satisfied, I feel valued, my focus of attention automatically goes to where it belongs to the customer, right? And now
exactly. You went even further now.
Exactly. I take Branson's quote and take it one step further. And I say the customer doesn't come first, the employee comes first, but the employee doesn't even come first. You come first. You as a leader come first, because only if you are taking good care of yourself, are you able to take good care of your people so that they can take care of your customers. Now, at first glance, this may sound a bit egocentric. Why? What me? What you come first? Well, you see, with my background in aviation, I always take the example of the emergency instructions or safety instructions before takeoff, right?
Yep.
Where the flight attendants show you where the exits are, etc., and nobody's looking and nobody's listening anyway.
Yep.
But then there's also the instruction on what to do when the oxygen masks come down from the ceiling, the yellow masks, right? They come down when there's a decompression and therefore lack of oxygen in the cabin. So the instruction is, before you even think of helping the child or the elderly lady next to you, put on your own mask. Because if you don't, depending on the speed of decompression, you may be unconscious within the first or the next 15 to 20 seconds. And then nobody is being helped.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the same thing. How can you be a good leader, an inspiring, caring leader who's there for his or her people, listening, you know, and being in a good relationship, if you are not in a good relationship with yourself?
Exactly.
If you're like running in the red zone all the time, on the limits, beyond your limits, almost hitting a wall, not in a good balance, stressed out, anxious, etc. I mean, this all influences your entire behavior, statements, what you do, how you come across. So there's a huge impact in how you take care of yourself. So leadership, in short, is not about you. It's about your people, and it's all about you, because it's where everything starts and begins.
Cool. So let's use those as a few closing words before I summarize. So leadership is it's not about you, but it's all about you. And to take back from what you said is that interpersonal skills are essential skills. Interpersonal skills require personal competence, and the why taking care of yourself is so important, because if you take care of yourself, you will be able to take care of your employees. And if you take care of your employees will be in a much better position to take care of the customers. And that will lead to more customer satisfaction, better results, and ultimately, or more profitability, and the organization will be more successful, and the leaders will be more successful also personally in their career.
Absolutely, absolutely. And in one sentence, we could say leadership development is personality development more than anything else.
Cool. So let's leave that as a final statement. And I thank you very much for taking time for this interview, and I wish you all the best with all the great work you do. Maybe just as a final comment, if you want to read more about Thomas Gelmi and what he does, he published this book. This is the German version. It's Durchstarten. It's really an excellent book. I can only recommend it. It's full of insightful stories. It's actually an excellent mix between stories where he illustrates what he's talking about, and really a very good and very concise framework he uses. So it's very much it's didactically also very well done.
Thanks very much for pointing that out, Andreas. And there's also an English version.
There is an English version, yes.
And the English version has the title Breakthrough.
Breakthrough. That sounds good.
Exactly.
Cool.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.